what I wanted to talk about today was the source of, I think, most of my struggles for the first about a year of my PhD. If you're new here, hi, I'm Gergu, welcome. I'm a second year PhD in the Netherlands, and my research is in the intersection of social networks and management. And I arrived to this research from quite a technical background. So I did my bachelor's degree in Hungary in mathematics, and then I came to the Netherlands to do a master in data science in business. And then on a good recommendation from two amazing professors who are now my supervisors, I signed up for this PhD project. But as you can tell, my previous education didn't particularly involve like the social science and humanities direction of stuff. I came from a land of purely abstract numbers, and then from a land of computers and algorithms, and now I arrived in the land of social science. And the kind of excuse for making this video was that I found myself telling the framework I'm about to tell you. I told this to master students over the last 2 weeks that I started to supervise, and I have this rule for myself that if I explain something 3 times the exact same way to people, then I just need to make a video about it or a blog post or something, right? So I did this 3 times with 3 different group of master students, so I figured I will just make a video about it. Hopefully it can help. So the biggest difference that I noticed at first when I kind of started to read different papers, right? More social science or more management papers coming from mathematics and more computer sciencey stuff was the length, because management papers are long. So, you know, this 30 to 45 pages in length is very much not unheard of on management. It's quite common. I think papers average around 35 pages, whereas in math or even computer science, most papers are, between 8 to 16 pages, depending on kind of how you count them. And this length bothered me in the beginning because it just takes so long to get to. It's just so much things, right? But then over time, and with the help of my supervisors massively, I kind of realized that the reason for this is because social sciences don't have numbers and formulas to be precise in kind of what they mean, right? So that means that, when in mathematics you can just do little, a formula and formalization, this formalization doesn't really exist when it comes to social science. It all is through the medium of language instead of the medium of, mathematical formalization. And they are just much, much longer papers. And this was something to get used to. The other thing was this all elusive concept of theory, which is going to be the main subject of today's video. So when you are reading papers in machine learning, for example, then you will see a section called related work, right? And then this related work kind of covers what are we, the authors, building on and how it is relevant to the task at hand. In social science papers, especially management, what you will see is a theory section. And then in the theory section, they will outline kind of, related work, stuff that is previously done that connects to here. And then a theoretical framework. I found this a bit baffling in the very beginning because, oh yeah, theory, but what does it mean? And I struggled a lot with kind of what does this theory mean? What is this theory? So after a year and a half of grappling with this, I think now I have a pretty okay understanding of how to use theory and kind of how to theorize and how to think about this. All the different theories just provide different lenses to make sense of the world, in essence. And if this sounds very abstract, it's because it is. Theories in social science are almost entirely on abstract plane, right? It's almost like philosophy. So most of the theories are not tied to specific contexts or domains or fields or anything of the sort. It's really just abstract constructs that somehow build up this bigger picture. As I was talking to my master students about this, I drew a visualization. I think it encapsulates how I think about this the best, right? So we're doing empirical research. That means that you need empirical social science, right? That is kind of what we're doing here. So that means that you need theory and you need data. And yes, you can do empirical research without data, you can do qualitative research, but I think that still counts as data, so let's just get over that. So the theory is gonna be this abstract, elusive plane of existence, completely disconnected from the real world. And then data is going to be in essence, rows in a table. And then kind of how they get there and the measurements and everything, let's just like forget about that for a second, right? Let's assume that you have some data and you have some theory. There are kind of two important relationships here, right? So the first one is kind of, moving from the abstract plane down to the vulgar plane is theories need to get operationalized in some way in a data context, right? So they become measurable. So when you create a measure that you basically for a given concept, then you basically take this abstract concept and then you create a way, an operationalization of that concept in the real world, something that, we can put numbers on. And this is kind of, half of the battle in social science. There are some theories and then we come up with ways to test these theories. And almost all of these ways need some sort of operationalization in the real world. Now, you can approach this from the other direction too, right? You can start from the data and then the data needs to represent some, theory on the abstract plane. So your data set becomes a representation of some theoretical constructs. And you kind of need both of these sides. So you need to argue why you can operationalize a certain theory with the data you have. The flip side of this is that you need to argue kind of why this data is a good representation of the theory that you want to argue about. To kind of make this a bit more concrete, you can just take a look at like a certain piece of theory, right? That like, let's look at the effect of category spanning on performance. And category spanning roughly means that there are certain entities that belong to more than one category and we want to look at their performance. And this sounds very abstract, right? But an example of category spanning can be fusion restaurants, because, restaurant categories are usually divided by cuisines, roughly. They can also be divided across price ranges if you want. But if you have a fusion restaurant that is, I don't know, like an Asian-Italian fusion restaurant, then that is going to be a category spanning entity. And then you can take a look at their performance compared to, I don't know, normal restaurants. See? Or it can be like with movies. If you have like a horror comedy movie or a horror rom-com, that is going to be a category spanning movie, because most movies are either horrors or rom-coms. And if you have a horror rom-com, that's a category spanner. And then you can look at the performance of it compared to normal movies, right? So this is just kind of like to frame how this whole operationalization representation can play out. I hope it helps. And I think that this distinction between theory and data really helped me make sense of how research is done. So, my PhD, I work with a media conglomerate and I have access to their data and I do all my research within their context, right? But the media landscape is a very specific one. So connecting to theories is quite difficult, especially, within the management context. And then for the first few months of my PhD, I struggled with this immensely because I kept looking like strategic management media papers, which are about like how to strategically manage like media brands, right? But media I was mixing up the two contexts, right? Because I was looking at media on the theory level, whereas my media wasn't a theory level, it was a data level, right? So, as I kind of matured as a management scholar, so to say, I started realizing like, okay, the fact that my data is about media doesn't mean that my theory has to be about media too. As long as I can argue that my media data is a good representation of a given theory, then I should be fine. So to me, this whole concept of separating the data from the theory and really thinking them as separate planes really helped me unlock the possibilities in my own research. Because if you cannot really separate these two from each other, then anything that you do will feel very restricted, because it's either going to be that, oh yeah, I only have, I don't know, data about pharmacies, then I must do, I don't know, something with pharma industry research. But that's just like not true, right? Because you can you can represent different theories with pharmacy data. Just as if your PhD is really set on a given theory, that doesn't mean that you have to kind of be stuck, like be married to one data set or one style of data, because you can operationalize that theory through very different lens. And I think once I kind of got this in my head, it alleviated a lot of the stress and a lot of this like confinement around research, and doing like this social science research became much more fun. So I think that's about all I wanted to say for today. Thank you very much for joining. I really hope that this can help to put all of this into context a bit. And thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.